This here is a podcast about Jeff Lebowski. The folks in Los Angeles call him the Dude. He's a man in the company of fools with agendas and ideologies. Now, I've been around for a long time, and every man lives for something. Pacifism, nihilism, feminism, bowling leagues. But the Dude, poor fella just wants his good old rug that tied the room together. Now that rug, oh hell, I lost my train of thought. This is the Big Labowski.
Yay! That was really good. I was hoping you'd do this, stranger. I
kind of. It was like, oh, I gotta do it. It's for my first synopsis.
Right. That was really good. I remember you telling me, you're just like, I just want to hear Sam Elliott continually say sarsaparilla.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm into that good old sarsaparilla.
Yeah. Just a remarkable performance by him. This is the first thing I ever saw Sam Elliott in.
Oh, okay. You know what's funny? You know what the first thing I saw Sam Elliott in?
What?
The Hulk, the 2004 version of the Hulk. He's a General Ross.
Okay, maybe that was it.
Okay.
I totally forgot it, because I think I watched that movie as a kid, so I just saw him as a character. I didn't see him as Sam Elliott.
I was obsessed with that movie as a kid. Because I just love the Hulk. I had, those Hulk hands. Did you ever see those?
Yeah, of course.
I had those as a kid.
You had them?
I had Hulk hands as a kid.
Whoa.
You don't know how psyched I was to have those. I think I brought them to school and to punch things just to make the sound.
God. No, I remember seeing commercials of them. You know, a movie I've been wanting to... So this is this is the Eric Bana one, right?
Oh, yeah. Directed by Ang Lee.
Right. So that's a movie that, I want to revisit because I want to be on that camp of, it's actually good.
Oh, it aged well, it was ahead of its time or
but
something.
But I'm worried that it's just not going to be bad.
I haven't seen it in a hot minute. Everyone says that it's a huge, artsy downer of a movie for a Hulk movie.
Yeah, but it has its, admirers, it has its cult following admirers, and I want to be on that camp so bad. I want to be in the camp of just you got to check out Ang Lee. It's it's a misunderstood masterpiece.
No.
Yes.
I remember the dogfight scene in that movie. I know we're gonna get to Big Lebowski in a second, but I just wanted to put it out there while we're here.
The dogfight scene, yes, I remember.
When he fights the three dogs, the poodle, the pit bull, and I think it was some kind of other hound. I don't know, but yeah, he fights three dogs in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, who plays the love interest in that one?
Oh, Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah, that was my first exposure to Jennifer Connelly.
It might have been mine too. Yeah. Have you ever seen that movie Career Opportunities?
No.
Hell yeah, man.
What, is it good?
Jennifer Connelly? Are you kidding me?
Oh, okay, cool.
It's a really horny John Hughes movie.
Oh, that's John Hughes?
Yeah.
John Hughes has some strange picks once in a while.
I mean, not all of his movies are hitters.
Yeah, that's true.
But we're talking about Big Lebowski today. Mm-hmm. Pretty daunting podcast for us, mostly because this is... You said it in a perfect way. This movie is basically our Matt Damon, the way Matt Damon is to Jimmy Kimmel. Where we're we've planned to do this podcast so many times, and for many reasons, we just keep pushing it back.
Yeah, I know. I forget that sometimes. I know I made that joke before, but it just leaves my mind that just to add even further context, way back in old Nice Dude days, before we did reactions full time or whatever you want to call it, we had a series called Classics I Haven't Seen. And
it was very dumb of us because now we regret it because I'm that could have been an amazing movie reaction.
Exactly, I know. It was before we committed to doing reactions, we thought we would do one of us hasn't seen the classic movie, then we sit down and talk about it, kind of like what we're doing
podcast
now. Yeah, but so we did a whole ass video on Big Lebowski, which is a 20-minute long, which is long for us at the time.
Yeah, now that's oh wow, just 20 minutes. Yeah. But you were the one who hadn't seen it, and. It made me so happy that you immediately had so much love for this movie, which you can't not, because a big part of it is just it's so funny. But I was kind of curious because the movie is also very confusing too. And the whole point is that you're just supposed to at the end of it just go with it.
Yeah.
But I was curious of what you would think, and you ended up really loving it.
Yeah, I did, and I hadn't watched it since I first watched it. When was that? 3 years ago? Or something like that?
Yeah, about 3 years ago.
And I hadn't rewatched it since until now. And I think I don't know if it was just from more experience or more life experience or, I don't know, changing the way I think of movies or something, but I actually appreciated it even more on like an even deeper level.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that, because like the part of this exercise with doing a podcast is that when we're watching a movie to prepare for this, any movie, right? Whether it's Shaun of the Dead, Willy Wonka, Ferris Bueller, all the podcasts that we've done, we're watching them kind of just thinking of the takes we're going to have.
Of course, yeah, that's naturally just part of the gig, right?
You're like, okay, so this is where I can talk about this. Oh, that's interesting. Like, so you're looking for things. And the magic of this movie is basically, the Coen brothers are basically saying, stop giving a shit.
Yeah.
Like, don't give it that much of a shit. Don't read into this that much. That's what the stranger's telling us too, in his own way. That's what the dude like is trying to live by, but no one will let him. Is that it's not that complicated. Walter, it's not about Vietnam.
Yeah, not everything's about Vietnam.
And so it's such an interesting exercise to watch this movie and try to analyze it. When you know Coen brothers and the way they are, they hate people overanalyzing this movie.
Yeah.
They probably hate the idea of movie podcasts.
Yeah, and it's funny though because like there's so many things to pick up on in this movie that like maybe it wasn't intentional by the Coen brothers. I don't know, I guess that's all subjective.
I think it's everything super intentional.
Yeah, but with that being said, there's so many little things to pick up on in terms of why people connect with it so strongly and its messages or lack thereof messages, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I said it in the synopsis, but a lot of it is about kind of the conflict between different life philosophies and how when you have all these different philosophies going on, none of them really matter, essentially.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the dude who I wrote down in my notes as, he's basically a deadbeat Humphrey Bogart in this movie.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because the movie, is the title of the movie is obviously invoking The Big Sleep, which is a Raymond Chandler novel. The Coen brothers were inspired by Raymond Chandler for this movie, but it's also a Humphrey Bogart movie. And The Big Sleep, what it's famous for, it's a noir movie that's so hard to follow the plot. Mm-hmm. It's so confusing. But a lot of people say it's just like, you just gotta go with it. Just go with the movie. The movie's great, and like at some point the plot doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Different tone than obviously the Big Lebowski, but that's kind of what they're going for here. But they're making the whole nothing matters part, and like they're making the over confusing part of the Big Lebowski character, right? So what does the dude like mean to you? Like what? Like who is he as a character to you?
I think like,
and by the way, I just want to clarify: you don't have to define the character for me. I think it's very clear. People can just watch the movie. What does he mean to you personally?
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of like a walking reminder. I mean, it's obvious they say in the movie, but a reminder to take it easy, that like you can take meaning and pleasure in life's little things, like hanging out with friends and, going bowling or whatever that thing is to you, right? I think like a lot of people feel like they're wasting their time if they spend time hanging out with friends. But I think someone like the dude just kind of is there to be like, hey, if you're happy doing it, then why do you worry about other bullshit?
Yeah, do you think, like, that's a fantasy? Like, I think it's definitely, like, what you're saying is right. Like, if there's stuff out there that's making you happy, then why not? But do you think the idea of, like, the dude is kind of just, like, a fantasy? Like, no one can live like this? Because when I watch this movie, no one's letting the dude be the dude.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting, though, is, like, I think, the movie spawned a whole ass, like, philosophy, right? Dudism. I mean, I don't know enough about it to get into a whole ass chapter about it, but there is something to be said that you can take a page from the book, at least, even if it's not as literal and lazy and slackery as the dude in the movie. But you can always take a page from it and remind yourself that, like, it's the cliche saying, the little things matter too.
Yeah, like, you don't have to be drinking White Russians at 10 a.m., but you can just have a good time bowling with your friends.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Not everything needs to be so overthought and looked into so deeply and have so much conflict about it.
And it's also, like, very much about, like, these guys post-Vietnam, what is their life right now? Yeah. And everyone goes a different route, kind of. Walter... John Goodman is obviously a person that just can't let go of a past. I mean, Walter is basically a character he can't get over his ex-wife.
Yeah.
He's going through a divorce that was like 5 years ago and still takes care of his ex-wife's dog.
Yeah, exactly. Takes care of his ex-wife's dog, still practices the religion he converted to when he married her.
Yeah, and is so defensive about it. He's like, you're not even Jewish, Walter. What the fuck did you just say?
Oh, I know. Well, he's such a man of, like, code and principle. I mean, they obviously set it up with the bowling tournament scene, the famous scene when he pulls out the gun.
This isn't dumb.
Yeah, he's like, over the line! You're about to enter a world of pain. Or whatever he
Yeah,
said.
what does he say? He said, I have his like exact quote right here because I don't want to get it wrong.
Okay.
But he's just like, this is not Nam, this is bowling. There are rules.
Yeah. And what's so interesting, though, is like that these different characters all have their own kind of code or their own structure or ways of going about things that are important to them. You know, Maud with her being like a hyper artistic feminist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or new wave or whatever you want to call it. Then there's the German nihilists, you know?
He's like, oh, they're nihilists. Oh, that's got to be exhausting.
Yeah, exactly. But what's so cool is that there's this kind of elegant chaos through it all, though. There's like constant juxtapositions. Like even the characters when they're all bowling in the opening scene, they set it up that they're all talking over each other. Donnie has no fucking clue what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And there's so many miscommunications and so many like misunderstandings throughout the whole movie.
Donnie's like 3 steps behind every conversation.
Yeah.
Like he's never caught up.
Yeah, which is like already setting up the nature of the movie. You know, that you're going to be kind of out of the loop on things and you got to go with it. It also, you know, you mentioned the Big Sleep.
The Big Sleep.
I've heard of that movie. I don't know much about it, but I have heard that it's confusing. It did remind me as well of Chinatown, too. Of like another mystery that you're kind of out of the loop on.
And the Los Angeles of it all.
Exactly, that too, you know. It feels like kind of an anti-Chinatown movie.
Yeah, it's just like very exciting to really make a noir movie, but put a character like the dude at the center of it.
Yeah.
Make him the Jack Nicholson. Make him the Humphrey Bogart, right? Like that's such a great invention of an idea. What if you created a noir where like the main guy doesn't even want to be a part of it?
Yeah, oh yeah, and also it ultimately doesn't amount to anything. The whole movie, the mystery, he doesn't have any real impact on any of it. Like
Yeah.
the kidnapping turns out to be a lie. The people that are holding the ransom are faking the ransom. Like he literally did not need to be part of it.
Yeah, the actual Big Lebowski just wanted to get rid of Bunny.
Yeah.
And like that whole trade-off with the money, he's like, you gave him a ringer for a ringer, man.
Yeah.
And which, by the way, I laughed so fucking hard when like John Goodman jumps out of the car, shoots it, the suitcase goes flying, fucking kills me every time.
I know, it's so chaotic and stressful.
How dumb he was as a character. It kind of reminds me, there's a quote in Tenet, and just go with me for a second.
I have not seen Tenet for listeners and viewers.
Where very early on in the movie, a character is explaining the whole inversion of time to John David Washington's character. And this moment's in the trailer where he said, you don't have to understand Tenet, you just have to feel it. That's basically setting the tone of what Tenet's going to be. Very confusing, but don't even bother piecing it.
Yeah.
Literally, it's Nolan telling you, just like, have fun. This is a movie, this is an action movie, take it as that. It's not supposed to be, don't look at it any deeper than it is.
Yeah.
In Big Lebowski, that's basically kind of what The Stranger is doing. Every time the dude's getting very hyper and he's getting stressed out, The Stranger's kind of there to just be like, hey, take it easy. You know, kind of reminding him, like, you're the dude, be the dude. And I think that's kind of what he's telling the audience, that I feel like that's what the Coen brothers are telling the audience, of just like, stop analyzing our movies. Like,
Yeah.
I think the Coen brothers obviously do everything purposely, and I think there's 2 sides of them, which is one is like they stuff their movies with so much left to be interpreted.
It gives you a lot of toys for your brain to use.
But on the other side, they're the same people that fucking hate interviews. They hate people talking at them about their movies.
Yeah.
And so, like, you can tell, like, the Lebowski's a way for them to, like, get that out of their system, just to be like, none of this really fucking matters.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, like, it's so interesting because even the, like, juxtapositions throughout, obviously, even just down to, like, a cowboy narrating over, like, modern Los Angeles.
Yeah, you know? the tumbleweed going through the city.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's almost this way of telling you that, like, things don't really change. Nothing ever really mattered the whole way through.
Yeah, and what does, like, he say towards the end? Like, you were quoting it earlier. I promise I won't just be a guy that's just quoting this movie, where he says, I guess that's the way the whole darned human comedy keeps perpetuating itself down the generations, right? It's all a cycle.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, I think another part of it is how kind of it feels like everyone's starring in their own movie at all times.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
How this movie very much is like a huge ensemble piece. And Coen brothers are like the kings of this. You know, people who are watching this or listening to this know that I've referenced this a lot. My favorite types of movies are the movies where there's no small parts.
Yeah.
And Coen brothers will like make the police officer that's talking to the dude when dude is picking up his car from the shop be a character. That's a person. He has a weird laugh. He's so like demeaning towards the dude. And I'm like, that could just be another small character, but the Coen brothers wrote him as such, right?
Yeah.
Everybody is living in their own world. And I don't know if you were getting to this, but Los Angeles is kind of like that.
Oh, yeah. 100%. I think, like, I get anxiety about that stuff sometimes, too. Like, I don't know if you've ever caught yourself thinking about that. Like, where let's say you're in the back of an Uber spacing out, and you accidentally make eye contact with someone in a car next to you, or something like that. You just see a glimpse of someone's face, and you think, that person had like a whole ass life that I will never be part of and I don't know anything about.
Yeah, it's when you're walking down the sidewalk, you see a family and you're just like, I will never know what that family's life is like. I will never know what they go through, what their day's been like. The only experience I have is they just walked past me. Exactly,
yeah. And I'm just aware of that person's existence and I don't know what to do with that.
LA's kind of like that in the terms of like, if you live in the valley and then you meet someone in Studio City even.
Yeah.
It's kind of like they're living a different life. This movie is very much about LA.
Yeah. In a very strange way, but it is.
But if you think about it, that's kind of what it's doing too, of just showing you like how fucking this city is different in all its forms. Like when he goes to Malibu, in Malibu he's like not welcome there, and he gets in the car and they're playing the Eagles. Like the dude feels like he's in a different world.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, can you just fucking, I hate the fucking Eagles, man.
He just can't turn. He's not welcome there, basically.
Yeah, and it's like it's all LA, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, you know what's funny is like when I was in high school, I remember I used to get anxiety about when I thought about Gatorade bottles. This is very weird. But I would look at like a Gatorade bottle at like a 7-Eleven or gas station or something, and then I'll just picture it like in a factory next to a shitload of other Gatorade bottles being filled with Gatorade, and then them being packaged in one big like 24 pack, whatever, how they mass sell it to stores.
Yeah.
And I just think like, oh fuck, there's like a whole ass truck full of Gatorade bottles that where the Gatorade's being spread. Like, and that's just one flavor, just the blue Gatorade bottles. Like, I'll literally, like, I remember in high school I had like a crisis thinking about that.
Really?
Like, maybe not that deep, but like I remember thinking about it and getting really weirded out. And you know what was funny is that same year my AP statistics teacher said he had the same type of thought, but with oranges.
Interesting.
Where he was like, he'll think of the oranges like growing in a field and someone picking them, then being like mass packaged and put into grocery store shelves. And he's like, that's a lot of oranges. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had anything like that at all, but it's so strange.
No, I haven't had like that experience, but I definitely do understand what you're getting at, which is just like it's like there's so much quantity being produced and it's all part of like an assembly line kind of feeling.
Yeah, and just overall just feeling like the world's a big place and you'll never fully know everything and you have to kind of come to terms with that.
But isn't that like what's so like intoxicating about a character like the dude?
Yeah.
Which is like, but that guy's just like, he just wants his rug back.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you just give me my rug back, leave me alone, and let me make myself a white Russian and just vibe, I'm good. Like I'm good. Like I honestly just keep your money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even like in the opening, after the narration and all that, when those two guys jump him and beat him up and try to give him swirlies in the toilet.
Yeah.
How at the very end he's kind of just annoyed. Like he's not like traumatized or anything.
Well, the line he says, because they're calling him a bum and a loser, is like, well, at least I'm housebroken.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's that shot of him on the toilet, the iconic shot, his hair wet toilet with the sunglasses on.
He pulled the sunglasses out of the toilet to put them on.
Oh, that little like kind of shimmy he does with the glasses.
Puts them on.
It's so gross.
But yeah, like even down to like when they're like, "Where's Money, Lebowski?" And he's like, "Oh, I think it's down there somewhere. Let me go look." Like he's still being sarcastic.
Yeah. So there's you've probably heard this, but it's such an interesting tidbit. This character is obviously like, you look at this character and you're like, this has to be a real person somewhere. You can't just invent this out of thin air. And Coen brothers met a producer by the name of Jeff Dowd. This is a guy that would call himself by the dude and drink a lot of white Russians. And,
wow.
And his vibe was very much the dude-like. I'm going to show you a picture of him.
Okay,
I just want
cool.
you to react to this.
Yeah. And we'll pop it up, obviously, for the video version. So if you're listening to this, we do recommend checking out the YouTube channel.
Yeah, wow, good plug. But this
Thanks,
is what,
man.
This is what he looks like.
Okay. Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's pictures of him like when he was. This is him when he's older, but there's pictures of him when he's a bit younger and he's on set, and he has a picture with like Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
Also, I recommend for people, like if they're interested, Jeff Bridges does this wonderful thing on all his movies where every movie he has a part of, he always brings like a film camera, like an old school film camera with him, and he takes pictures on set. He started taking selfies before selfies were a thing. He would be on Big Lebowski and he has a selfie with him and Sam Elliott, on the bar. So check out his website. He puts it all there. Awesome. It's amazing.
Yeah, because I knew that the dude was based off of someone. I didn't know he was that literal, that he called himself the dude and drank White Russians. Like, I thought those were just movie flares that they put on. I thought they just based it off of like a chill guy, you know what I mean?
And there's also, before we move on from it, there's also another guy that they kind of like mixed these two characters from. There's another guy like by the name of Peter Exline, who Vietnam War veteran, and he lived in a shitty apartment, and he's a friend of the Coen brothers from USC, and he lived in a shitty apartment, but he was really proud of this rug that he kept saying tied the room together. Okay. He lived in the worst apartment, but he's like, but look at this rug, man.
Imagine having that much of a connection to a rug. You know, that's awesome though. You know what I mean?
But there is that thing like when you're like, because you just bought a couch, right?
Yeah, I did.
And there is that thing like as you're like becoming an adult, and even though you're in a shitty situation, there's one thing in your place that you're super proud of.
Yeah.
You can like for me, it's like I really fucking like my TV. It's like I'm like everything else in like the place I'm in my room is like fine, but like my TV is like, look at this thing.
I get to sit down and just watch movies all day. And
it's like, especially now, like where you're kind of allowed one nice thing, and it's like the guy really likes his rug.
Yeah,
you know,
it's very wholesome in a way.
Also, White Russians as a drink.
Yeah,
right. It's so perfect for the dude because it's basically an adult milkshake.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like a super classy drink to get on a regular basis.
But it's like perfect for the dude to just want that because he wants like just something that's cozy and comfortable.
Yeah.
Which is a White Russian is vodka, half and half, and Kahlua cream. So it's like it's an adult milkshake.
Yeah, it's an iced coffee kind of thing.
It's a very fatty drink to have like 4 of like every day.
I know he always makes himself White Russians.
And so it's just kind of perfect this time around. The way when he drinks it, it's all over his like mustache, and he does that thing where he puts his bottom lip over it.
Yeah, well, even down to like his mannerisms. Like every time I see him walk, I just want to laugh because he's always in his robe or like his cardigan. Just
the way he sits too. When he sits down, he has one leg over the arm.
Yeah.
Is this your first exposure to Jeff Bridges? Oh wait, no, it's not.
No,
it's not. You just watched Big Lebowski like 3 years ago.
Yeah, what was my first exposure to Jeff Bridges? He's one of those actors that I feel like it's just been around. It's hard for me to like imagine like, oh, this is my first one.
Tron Legacy.
That's it. Yep, it wasn't Iron Man. It was
You know what though? I think for me it might have been Iron Man.
I'm trying to think, maybe
because I was in 8th grade when Iron Man came out, and if I had seen Jeff Bridges beforehand, I probably didn't clock him.
You know what, though? I will say, still to this day, sometimes I get him and Kurt Russell confused.
That's insane.
They're completely different actors.
They're so different.
But they look mildly similar. They feel very different. But if you really just kind of... You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
Maybe people can relate to this listening.
Kurt Russell is so different for me that I can't... like.
Well, you have like a very special attachment to Kurt Russell.
I do. I think like... Are you specifically talking about like the long hair vibe?
Yeah, like kind of like a grizzled, long hair, good actor.
Good, yeah.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, there's not many actors like that have long hair or are grizzled.
Yeah, but I don't know. I can't really explain it. But for some reason, my brain just, when I was younger, especially, like I'll forget. I'll be like for a while when I was young, like I thought it was Kurt Russell that was in Tron Legacy, not Jeff Bridges.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very weird. It's like one of those.
Well, young Jeff Bridges, like so. Here's the thing about Jeff Bridges. This movie kind of defined him afterwards.
Yeah.
He basically became Lebowski after this. It's truly like, even though he's had a career much longer than when Big Lebowski came around, this character kind of defines him now.
Yeah, I mean, that happens sometimes. I feel like the same thing with John Goodman in a way, too. John Goodman, like, luckily, he was in a lot of other iconic roles, obviously Roseanne.
Yeah, and even after that, like, he showed up in a lot of, like, Coen Brothers stuff that... Sure. Like Jeff Bridges did do True Grit, but John Goodman's been like a staple in a lot of Coen Brothers stuff that like you kind of like are just like, oh, he's a Coen Brothers guy, and Jeff Bridges, even though he did True Grit, it's just like he's just Lebowski to you.
Yeah.
I just find that so fascinating when that happens to an actor, when like the character becomes so much bigger than them, but it also swallows the actor. You know?
Yeah, no, just takes over their identity.
Like when you're talking about Kurt Russell,
yeah.
Like I think what's interesting about Kurt Russell is that he has like 5 of those.
Yeah, I know. There's so many interesting characters that he's played in his time.
He specifically has chosen roles where he like that character could be an action figure.
Yeah, I know. He'll always be R.J. McCready to me.
Yeah, but there's some people who are just like, oh, that's Snake Plissken. Mm-hmm. What's his character's name in Big Trouble?
Jack something.
Oh God,
You're gonna look it up? All right, cool. Let's get to the bottom of
Talk
this.
about Kurt Russell.
I mean, I love Kurt Russell. You know, he's such a fun guy. Every interview I see him, and he always is like laughing the whole time.
Just because I look like him.
Well, his laugh is so good.
Yeah.
His laugh is like a big, like hearty, like a guffaw. It's like, yeah, no, I remember me and Carpenter, like we had no money. Yeah. If you guys love Kurt Russell, listen to the commentary of the thing. It is so much fun because it's basically Kurt Russell laughing at how they got that shot. It's him laughing with John Carpenter, be like, I remember when we got this, everyone was freaking out.
Yeah, just happily reminiscing.
It's like so the opposite tone of the movie.
I know, especially in like such a bleak movie.
But Kurt Russell's name in Big Trouble in Little China, Jack Burton.
Okay.
So not a crazy name, but
crazy character.
A character that is, and I think we've talked about this, he's basically doing Chris Pratt in Guardians before Chris Pratt became Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
Which is basically like trying to be an action hero, but he's too lame. He's trying so hard to be Bruce Willis.
And ultimately contributes nothing to the plot.
Well, that's brilliant. Big Trouble's a brilliant movie. Check out our movie reaction if you haven't seen it. But yeah, I mean, Jeff Bridges, I definitely like just see him as Big Lebowski now.
Sure.
But also, like, I think he's doing so much in this movie that is, like, can't be understated. We already mentioned his body language.
Yeah.
But, like, the moments where he gets worked up are kind of my favorite. Like, because like everyone remembers him as the guy that's just like, you know, drinking a White Russian, listening to music, doing like a karate pose, doing weird shit. But it's just the moments where he's like, Walter, like what?
Yeah.
Like, well, he looks so like Jeff Bridges is not a small guy, but like next to John Goodman, he looks so tiny. Yeah. And there's so many scenes where like Walter's freaking out, and like Jeff Bridges is like, God.
Well, that's what I think is like so well done in the script too, is that he's not like a cartoonist, like never gets angry or never gets stressed about anything.
He's a person.
He's a person, and like when things, you know, he's just trying to get his room back, and he's entangled in this whole mystery. Yeah, he gets stressed when like John Goodman ruins it or whatever happens. You know, he's very like, yeah, like you said, he's like, Walter, all right, you asshole. Well, everything's just chaos with you, whatever he says.
I just love Jeff Bridges. I love everything he does. If you haven't seen this show, it's on FX. It came out last year. It's called The Old Man.
Oh, yeah. You showed me the first episode of that one.
He's so good in that. And he's also kind of menacing and scary in that. So it's like a cool, like, oh, you don't get to see him do this kind of thing that often.
Sure. Have you seen that clip of him when John Goodman was given his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame?
Yeah, and he puts on the Lebowski.
Yeah, and he gives a speech that's basically reminiscent of Donnie's eulogy.
Oh, yeah.
Which, you want to talk about John Goodman?
Yeah.
Well, we haven't really, we're like half hour into this.
He plays every sequence like he's about to pop a vein.
I know, dude. I know.
Walter's basically there to make every situation more complicated than it needs to be. Lebowski would much rather, like, even up to the end when he's like, okay, we can get out of this thing cheap, because the nihilists are basically like, just give us anything that's in your wallet. We still want your money, Lebowski. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And he's like, what's mine is mine, dude.
Yeah, I know. He has to escalate it and die on this hill.
I mean, it's a very sad character if you zoom out, because it's a guy that just got back from Vietnam, got divorced, and is dealing with all of that. And Donnie's clearly his like way of letting all of that out. It's his PTSD and all this stuff. People have also been having this theory of Donnie's not real, and it's his way of dealing with his PTSD.
Yeah,
but that's just not true.
Sure, I agree. I don't think that's the case. I think Donnie's pretty real.
But yeah, like, I mean, what do you think of Walter? Like, how do you look at John Goodman in this movie?
Yeah, no, totally. I have the same thing. I think it is kind of sad. He's also so stuck in the past. Like, I think that's, yes, the divorce and yes, Vietnam, but overall, he's just so fixated on the past.
There's a part of him that, like, finds peace in the monotony that is bowling. Mm-hmm. Which is, okay, so I want to talk about the bowling because it very much relates to Walter's character.
Sure.
But, you think a lot about, like, why the fuck are they bowling? You know what I mean? Like, why is there so much bowling work going on? And there's so many theories on it. This movie's been so overanalyzed. We're the millionth podcast that's talking
to
about
cover this movie.
Big
I know,
Lebowski.
right?
But there's something about bowling of you roll the ball, hit the pins, the ball comes right back.
Yeah.
There's something reliable about that. And for Walter, it might be the most reliable thing in his life.
Yeah, like this idea of control that you have over your destiny, almost.
And it's just like, if I roll the ball a certain way, and if I have enough, like, calmness in my body, I can hit a strike.
And you have to just follow the rules, no stepping over the line, obviously. Yeah. That's something he takes very seriously. You soon learn.
Well, it's a joke, but this is in Vietnam. This is bowling, there are rules.
Yeah.
For him, that means the world.
Yeah, no, that is like his idea of control.
Even like when he's spreading Donnie's ashes, which is just an all-time scene. That's like possibly one of my favorite scenes.
Not a single ash gets in the ocean.
And like Walter's whole speech, and it was like, and in your great wisdom, Lord, you took him.
Yeah.
John Goodman is insane. I don't know why like he didn't receive any award, but it's like remarkable. Anyways, we can talk about the crisis that Walter's going through. He's also like has some of the funniest lines in this movie. Like, you want a toe? I can get you a toe, dude. There are ways. I can get you a toe. 3 p.m. I can get you a toe.
Dude, like him dying on that hill that the kidnapping was fake. And he turned out to be right. That's the funniest part. Is like, it seems so obvious when you first watch it that Bunny's toe was cut off and has the nail polish, and then the dude's trying to convince him, like, it has her nail polish. It was so clear. Like, it's her fucking toe.
Like,
and
the dude is right to think that, but like Walter is just like skeptical of every single thing. Like, everyone's out to get him.
It's because he wants the money for himself. That was the whole thing. He wants them to scam the money out of them because he's convinced that the kidnapping was fake. So he will die on that hill down to seeing evidence of her body parts being there.
Yeah.
But then the funniest thing is it pays off because he was right. That Bunny was fine, and it was really the Germans that like cut off his girlfriend's toe.
Yeah.
To fake it.
Well, I mean, like, I don't want to read off all his quotes, but another one that I really love is, dude, Chinaman is not the preferred nomenclature. Asian American, please.
Well, also, he says that like mid-thought.
You do not. Also, dude, Chinaman is not the preferred nomenclature.
Like, but he kind of like lowers his voice. He's like, "Come on, dude. Like, let's be proper here. The world has changed." Like, again, it's that whole thing going back to like this guy like has like desperately wants to live by like some code.
Yeah,
that's the whole difference with him. Like, dude doesn't want to live by anything.
Yeah. Yeah, he just wants to enjoy himself.
Not even to the point where he doesn't even want to define himself as a nihilist. Like, that's the reason why that's the best moment when he's like, that must be exhausting.
Yeah.
To believe so hard in believing nothing.
Yeah, I know, must be, I know.
And the dude is like, doesn't want part of any of it. And Walter is just like, if we don't live by anything, then the world just burns.
Yeah, I know. That's the weird thing, like, when I think about things sometimes, too, where it's like, it's easy, like, when when it comes to nihilism, like, I've struggled with nihilism a little bit. I think all of us have, like, kind of dipped our toes in it, to some extent. I think there's something so kind of privileged about that, though, at the same time, because you're like, oh, well, I don't need to contribute to anything. Other people have contributed to society for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, you gotta stand for something.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that we go through daily is that, like, okay, but so what? Like, what if we stand for something? There's people in power, and that's not going to change anything. So it's you go into that, and you can see, like, the dude has basically gotten to a point where, like, yeah, I mean, I was part of this anti-Vietnam movement, part of the Seattle 7, I wrote this. Right now I'm just unemployed. Like, he's like, oh, fuck it, dude. Like, seriously? Yeah, I just go bowling, I drive my car around now.
Yeah, I know. And, like, I mean, like, recently, too, more art and more movies and shows have been tapping into like positive nihilism, like making nihilism into a good thing.
Aside from Everything Everywhere All at Once, what are some other ones?
Rick and Morty, funny enough. I know that show kind of went different directions. I'm not talking about Justin Roiland or anything, but a lot of the themes around Rick and Morty are about all these parallel universes, and like Rick deals with the struggle of nihilism because he knows that everything's pointless because he's been exposed to so much shit.
Yeah, it's strange talking about that show now.
I know. That's why but it is another example, especially early on. Rick and Morty dealt with that.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, like the thing that movie wraps it up with is like, if nothing matters, then we should be nice.
BoJack Horseman also deals with positive nihilism too.
BoJack Horseman is great. I mean, BoJack Horseman is interesting though. It's not trying to wrap it up in a bow for you to help you understand what nihilism is. But at the same time, it's telling you that these feelings are normal and they're okay.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty effective too.
Yeah, feelings are normal, they're okay, and like there's always like the next day. That's always kind of the ongoing thing of BoJack is like you could hit a rock bottom, but you can kind of, you got to pick yourself up after.
This movie is insane. We don't have to go that deep into it. It is a comedy, but I mean, it's what it is. Like if you want to read into this movie, you can read into this movie that way.
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, if the movie spawned a whole ass fucking philosophy, let's talk philosophically. You know what I'm saying? If there's a whole like legitimate church called like Church of Latter-day Dudes.
I also want to make sure we don't get too heady about it because there's so many parts of this movie that are very funny.
Oh yeah. No, this movie is hilarious.
Let's talk about like the just basic structure of this movie. We already mentioned Sam Elliott, the stranger, kind of breaking down this world, opening it up for us. Immediately, the dude gets attacked. There's this rich Big Lebowski that needs his help into getting his bunny back, right? Him entering the house is probably the hardest I laugh, and primarily because of Philip Seymour Hoffman.
You're talking about when he's showing him around all of his achievements and kind of building up the character of Jeff Lebowski, or the rich one.
If you want to know what like true character acting is, look at what Philip Seymour Hoffman's doing in this scene. Is that even when he's in the background, his body is so stiff and he's just like so nervous because like the dude's just touching everything. It's like, oh, don't touch that dude.
I know.
Philip Seymour Hoffman is like one of my like top 3 favorite actors of all time.
He was so good, dude.
I don't think I've ever disliked him in a movie. And if you guys like Philip Seymour Hoffman and are interested, go to the Big Picture podcast. They recently did a episode just on Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh, that's cool.
Called the Philip Seymour Hall of Fame. What's your relationship with Philip Seymour Hoffman? Because I want to talk about him because we don't get a chance to discuss him.
Yeah, I know.
And we might do his movies in the future, but like, what's your relationship with him?
I mean, I've seen him a lot throughout growing. I haven't seen Capote. I haven't seen that movie. I don't know if you've seen that one.
But that's the one like he won for, right?
Yeah, that was like a big role for him for sure when he was in the lead. But I have seen, I've seen Boogie Nights. He's awesome in Boogie Nights. Yeah. I mean, and there's always, you and I have talked about Along Came Polly plenty.
Yeah, no, Along Came Polly. He's like the reason that movie still gets watched on Netflix.
Yeah, I know. Oh, Synecdoche, New York. I've seen him in too.
Synecdoche, New York is one I want to check out. Now, I'm not a big Kaufman guy, and that's not me saying like I don't like Kaufman. It's just that I haven't checked out enough of his work.
Yeah.
But Synecdoche, New York is like such a daunting watch to just be like, gotta watch that one.
Yeah. So,
but I want to check it out because of him.
Yeah, you should for sure. Just to get a good lead role from him. I don't know what else to say. I'm kind of on the same page where he's one of those like perfect actors that is like so committed in everything he's in, even down to like you said something like Along Came Polly. That's a pretty disposable comedy overall. But he is literally the standout of that whole movie.
I think what stands out to me about him, and maybe this is a way we can slowly tie it back to this movie, is he's able to fit into whatever world the movie requires him to be in.
Yeah.
The man shows up in Hunger Games Catching Fire and immediately feels like, oh, he's part of the Capitol. He is the game master. I believe him. Yeah. People don't remember in like Catching Fire, he's set up as like a villain at first, and then it's that twist, right?
Yeah.
Spoilers for Catching Fire, but like,
I love the tone of that Catching Fire. Like,
it's a good movie, but like still, like really, you're gonna get mad at me for spoiling Catching Fire? Obviously, he became Paul Thomas Anderson's guy.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Master, right? That's the name of the movie he was in.
I
feel so stupid saying like it's called The Master, but I know what with Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, but he's been The Master, and which is just like a fucking hell of a movie. But then like also like in Punch Drunk Love, the guy shows up.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot he was in that one.
See, that's the thing about it. It's like in Punch Drunk Love, people forget that he has this insane role as the mattress man. Where he like is absolutely bonkers, but immediately feels like yes, no, but of course.
Like somehow he just knows what movie he's in, which is like hard to pull off for actors in terms of like understanding because you don't really know until you're in the theater watching the movie what type of movie it is.
I'm not someone that's like the best at criticizing a poor performance. Sometimes I get it wrong. So like I just don't know that much about acting.
Yeah.
But something I do know is when an actor takes me out of a movie, and Philip Seymour Hoffman, I'm never taken out of it. Even though I'm excited at the fact that Philip Seymour Hoffman's in the movie, but I'm never like distracted.
Yeah.
Have you seen Moneyball?
No, I never saw that one.
Man, Moneyball.
I'd like to see that one.
Moneyball's one of those movies where I'm like, I'm not going to give a shit about this. It's talking about like a baseball team owner. It's an Aaron Sorkin script, so he kind of just makes you care about something that you wouldn't expect to care about.
Yeah.
And Philip Seymour Hoffman plays like a coach of the Oakland A's, and like you just feel like this guy's been in a dugout for 10 years of his life. I'm like, how the fuck does that work? How do you do that?
The dude's a beast. I mean, my girlfriend loves Philip Seymour Hoffman, which says something because she doesn't follow actors or like fully love actors.
She can appreciate it, but she's not someone that's gonna clock a movie star and being like, oh, this person.
Yeah, except Philip Seymour Hoffman.
So when Philip Seymour Hoffman shows up as Brandt, you're like, I immediately know everything about this guy the way he walks.
Yeah. I know, the way his hands are always crossed over each other. And obviously, I mean, the iconic shot is him laughing. When he does that hard laugh.
Well, it's the line that I wrote it down. Bunny looks at Lebowski, or the dude.
Yeah.
And she says, I'll suck your cock for $1,000. Wonderful woman. We're all very fond of her. Very free-spirited.
Again, you're so uncomfortable watching this whole thing. It feels like, again, with the dude, too, it feels like a world he's not involved in. Like, it's like, okay, I'm just stopping by.
Yeah.
Like, I just want a rug.
I think, like, it's just, like, a true delight.
Yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman's in this movie, but, like, also the chemistry that he has with the rich Big Lebowski, the actual, like, Lebowski,
yeah.
Right? Who's also amazing. I want to get his name real quick. It's David Huddleston. He's so good at being like tightly wound and always, it feels like his face is squished.
Yeah, again, it feels like a different movie he's in, which is like the intention.
It's like the dude kind of like being the tumbleweed rolling through all these different lives in LA.
Totally. Like it felt like
I was kind of proud of that. That was really good of me. It's like I killed that.
That was a zinger, dude. That's a short moment. We need to make a short out of that.
Let's make a short. Put it vertical, yellow subtitles. Anyways, go ahead.
But yeah, for that moment, it felt like you wandered into like a dystopian movie or something like that. Like as soon as it's like this kind of low, dominating shot of him there yelling.
Yeah, like I don't care about your bum life.
Yeah.
And when they're in the car, well, it's like their dynamic between the Big Lebowski and Brandt.
Yeah.
The moment that like kills me, that I think is very underrated, is when the dude like is called into the house, and it's basically right after Bunny's been quote unquote kidnapped.
Yeah.
And Big Lebowski is kind of looking at the fireplace, giving this monologue, and he starts giving it right when the dude enters, as if it was planned. You know, it cuts to the shot of Brandt, Philip Seymour Hoffman, looking down, kind of really upset, and suddenly being like, oh, it's like they rehearsed it. I'm like, okay, this is now a good time for me. Give me the ransom letter. Yeah. It's like Brandt and the Big Lebowski have been rehearsing this scene.
Yeah, they timed it accordingly.
And he's like, oh, okay, now.
I also love that tiny shot when he's looking at all the achievements. How when he looks in that mirror with the magazine cover,
Time magazine covering the mirror.
Yeah, and it says, "Are you a Lebowski achiever?" And it's just his face. Like...
And then another scene where just highlights their dynamic is when he gets like taken out of the limo and is forced into the limo where Brandt and Big Lebowski are. The line is, "Hey, careful, man, there's a beverage here."
Oh yeah, because they threw him in. Oh, because when they're grabbing him and they're pulling him over and it's just rattling his drink around.
It's that wide shot of just like him being dragged holding the White Russian that's so funny. But it's that shot of Big Lebowski and Brandt in a limo tightly fit.
I know.
That is so fucking funny because again, the way the Big Lebowski looks, he looks like a circle. You know what I mean?
Oh no, totally. It's like, yeah, he's a very circular man.
I forget who said this. I wonder if it was, I forget if it was a Nerd Writer or Lessons from the Screenplay, but there was some video essay person that mentioned that Coen brothers are like very good at casting faces.
That's interesting.
And they pay close attention to faces. If you look at No Country for Old Men and you look at the coin flip scene, that guy at the store feels like he's been there for 20 years.
Yeah.
Just by his face, he doesn't even have to talk.
And he's never seen a man like Anton
Chigurh. Yeah. That was just so interesting to me.
That is interesting because even down to like in Lebowski, how obviously the famous, like, you're about to enter a world of pain when he takes the gun out. The dude, I keep saying the dude, but not the dude. The guy. I'll have to switch
the
that
long-haired guy that oversteps the line.
Yeah, like he has a perfect face for it. He has that kind of blank, confused, scared but not overacting. Not at all.
No, and like whether it was the casting director of Coen Brothers or whether it was the Coen Brothers just giving a note to the casting director of like, hey, listen, any small part, we want to make sure this is a person that has their own life. It's kind of like the thing you were talking about of just like that fear that you have walking past someone and being like, who is that person?
It like strengthens the Coen Brothers writing and their casting.
That's what they do throughout all their movies. Yeah. And Fargo does that really well. Fargo will have characters that show up for like 5 seconds and you're just like, well, they have their own life.
I need to see Fargo.
We have that on our list to react to.
That's another Matt Damon movie. We need to just label it that, Matt Damon movies.
So Fargo's a Matt Damon movie?
No, not literally. Do you know? I'm saying like we need to label them. Let me finish. I'm saying we need to label them Matt Damon movies of the movies we never get to but keep wanting to get to.
Fargo's one of them.
Yeah.
Speaking of another Matt Damon movie that's actually a Matt Damon movie that we need to get to is Good Will Hunting, because you haven't seen that one.
Yeah. I know the ones that I haven't seen now are like getting down to dramas.
Can you describe how you talk about Good Will Hunting to me?
No, it's not Good Will Hunting. It's Dead Poet Society.
No. You also say this. You have a funny way to describe it.
Okay, so just for context, listeners and viewers, I have this thing where because I haven't seen these movies and I know that they are very iconic
and special to a lot of people, and also he hasn't seen the two. The key to this, he hasn't seen the 2 Robin Williams performances where people laud him for giving an amazing dramatic performance.
Yeah. I've only seen the Robin Williams comedies, basically. But with that being said, I casually, because I know some of the lines in passing, because I've just seen video essays and whatever, I'm like, oh, Good Will Hunting. Isn't that the one where it's like not Matt Damon's fault or something? Isn't that like I make it sound so dumb?
He does it to upset me, and it's like it's always works. And no matter how many times you do it, I'm like, come on, just have some fucking respect. And you'll be like, you haven't seen Dead Poet Society, and so you'll just be like, oh, that's the one where like everyone's on the table.
Oh, like it's like a bunch of happy schoolboys.
I'm like, that's so not the movie.
I know.
Don't spoil those 2 movies in the comment section, please.
It's like a weird superpower I have. Like I take advantage of the fact that I don't know these movies.
Well, so I watched like on my own because I had never seen it and I've been wanting to check it out. I watched Pretty Woman by myself for the first time last night.
Yeah.
And before I'd seen the movie, I was kind of breaking it down in my head, and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't think I've seen a single Richard Gere movie. And then it became a bit. I'm just like, to me, Richard Gere doesn't exist.
There is no Richard Gere.
I saw him in Pretty Woman last night, and I was like, oh, why the fuck did I miss this guy? Anyways, going back to Brandt for a second, I just wanted to say like one of my favorite Brandt quotes, because it's the way Philip Seymour Hoffman says it. Big Lebowski just being like, they did not receive the money, you nitwit. They did not receive the money. Her life was in your hands. This is our concern, dude.
Yeah. It's like trying to level things out a little bit. Be the good cop.
The way other characters call him dude is so funny to me. Hi, dude. Like they say.
I know, and it elevates, his character. Again, he constantly doesn't really belong because they're all in their own storylines. And then this guy called the Dude wanders into a kidnapping ransom plot line.
And then gets taken to Jackie Treehorn.
Yeah.
Who's like the mastermind porn producer of all of this. Like he's this mogul. And like immediately Jackie Treehorn, you see him, you're like, I know who this guy is. Because like, first of all, you see this shot of girls on a trampoline.
Yeah. It's like some weird, almost gives off like weird sex cult vibes.
Yeah, it's like a weird David Lynch shot. Like, what the fuck am I seeing?
David Lynch, exactly, yeah.
And suddenly Jackie Treehorn walks into focus with a white suit. Like, dude, Jackie Treehorn, have a seat.
I know. Then he ends up spiking his drink, which we haven't even talked about those wild dream sequences.
I'm leading up to this the big sequence.
Yeah.
But before that though, a moment that I loved is like he's like, wait 1 second, while the dude has having a drink, and Jackie Treehorn writes something on a piece of paper, rips it, and walks away, and dude is watching, and it's like, oh, dude's about to become a detective.
Yeah.
Like he sketches it out, and then it's basically the Coen brothers being like, fuck you, we're not doing that.
It's just the dick drawing on it. And he like scurries back and hides.
It's such a brilliant move, because you think the character's going through an arc of just like, okay, wow, he's getting wiser to the situation, he's getting smarter because he's going through this, and it's like, no, fuck off. This is all ridiculous.
Yeah, I know, it doesn't amount to anything.
Spikes his drink, and we get into this just delightful sequence. I love it. The moment where like Jeff Bridges basically kind of like wanders into it and he's dancing. And it's obviously, everyone talks about it as the Bugsby Berkeley musical inspired sequence where you get him like going under all these girls.
Yeah, his eyes are all bugging out too.
This is a real one of those where I'm like, I wish I was in the theater opening night for this.
I know, it's such a, like, that's one of those sequences when you say like, oh, don't overanalyze it. I'm sure everyone's looked at it and like, oh, it's supposed to represent this painting or whatever, right? People can probably easily pick it apart to overstudy it. But it's kind of just fun. You can just go with it without thinking about that.
Yeah, I know, for real. Like, when I was watching the movie, I was like, oh, well, you look at all these characters from the dude's life. They're all showing up in different ways. Julianne Moore showing up, all the nihilists. And they just won't leave the dude alone. He just wants to dance. But then I'm like, knock yourself out, dude. This is just like a fun
Yeah,
scene.
it's like, I don't really care.
I know, like, he's going into the bowling pins and... it's everything. This is just movie magic.
Yeah.
Like, they build these sets and they actually executed these sequences for how silly it is. It's that thing you and I talk about Mel Brooks all the time, is putting effort and work into just pure silliness.
Oh, I know. Like, those shots don't fuck around. Like, when he's, like, flying over the city, too.
Oh, la 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 la.
Which is a separate dream sequence, I know. That happened earlier in the movie. But still, you know.
But it's the same thing where he, like, finds a bowling ball and the bowling ball, like, kind of drags him down. Like, no one's letting the dude be the dude. Life just won't let the dude be the dude. And, I mean, yeah, you talk about the cinema. It's Roger Deakins.
I don't think I knew that.
No way, really?
Yeah, I didn't. I just forgot. I don't know. I've only seen this movie twice.
He did Fargo before this.
Okay.
Well, that's something to mention, too. 2 years before this movie, they put out Fargo. And then their follow-up is this, like, stoner noir comedy that's about bowling? Like, what the fuck?
Oh, I know. They have such, like, a weird variety of movies.
Well, that's what I love about them, is that you can never expect where they're going to go next.
Yeah, I mean, even, like, why am I drawing a blank on the title? Oh, Inside Llewyn Davis. That's another, like, really unique Coen Brothers movie.
A depressing portrait of an artist on his last ropes, but it's still very Coen Brothers because it has that scene with Adam Driver and Justin Timberlake.
Yeah. It has, like, a very specific sense of humor to it. Outer space. Yeah, it's Justin Timberlake. I totally forget that.
Probably his, like, only good performance after Social Network.
Yeah. I'm more of an in-time guy, you know?
You always have been. It's one of those movies you've referenced to me many times.
I only saw that movie once, too.
But you've referenced it many times. You're like, oh, well, it's not like that scene in Time. I'm like, Chris, no one else talks like that. No one else says, oh, it's like that one scene in Dickie Roberts. Like, what are you fucking talking about?
Jingle All the Way, Dickie Roberts.
Again, I always say this every time we talk about this bit. Jingle All the Way, I excuse. All right, I guess we fucked around enough. Let's talk about Donnie and that ending.
Yeah, okay.
So the final, like, basically 20 minutes of the movie.
Are you talking about when they're in the parking lot? When
I'm getting to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting to it. The final 20 minutes of the movie begins with Donnie rolling, and there's one pin left. Kind of setting his fate. Something's wrong here.
I know. He's kind of like, oh, a little bummed out that he missed it.
But also concerned.
Yeah.
Like, he looks concerned. Like, something's wrong.
Yeah, there's a disorder. He feels like a breeze. Something's off. Yeah.
There's a disturbance in the force.
Yeah.
And they walk out, and the car's on fire, and the nihilists are there. Like, we want your money, Lebowski.
Mm-hmm. And Flea's there. I haven't even fucking mentioned Flea yet.
Flea's in this movie.
Yeah, just why not? Flea just appears in movies when he feels like it.
A fight breaks out that's just, like, both funny and, like, violent at the same time.
Yeah.
The way they just throw the bowling ball at him, and it's so brutal. But the fact that Donnie gets a heart attack.
Yeah, right at the end of the scene.
Yeah.
Well, because the dude thinks he's been shot at first.
Yeah.
And
like, no, it's just a heart attack.
He's like, no gun went off. Like, he's trying to tell, like, no one shot me.
And you as an audience are like, oh yeah, never mind. But who is Donnie to you? Before we, like, talk about the funeral of Donnie, like, who is he to you?
I mean, you know, I've known guys like Donnie. Like, I remember I worked at a Jersey Mike's, and there was a guy who... This is different from Donnie, but similar. This is like a different flavor of Donnie, where, like, he always wanted to be in on the conversations, but never had any context, but always acted like you were talking to him.
I'm the walrus.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think I remember, like, I'd come into work and I'd have conversations with coworkers, and he'll be there on the side, like, looking right at me, like I'm talking to him, like, oh, you're in the conversation now. And that's not, like, it sounds douchey to say, but it's one of those things where I'm like, when you act like you're part of a conversation without actually having any other context, like, it's like the thing that John Goodman says, like, you're like the kid that wanders into the movie
halfway through and like, where, and you kind of want to be like, shut the fuck up, Donnie.
Yeah. The way he's like, he has in the beginning, he's like, oh, Lebowski, that's your name.
Donnie, you're out of your element.
Yeah.
It's so funny. But something about Steve Buscemi, like, I think people have said this joke before. His character in Fargo won't shut the fuck up.
Okay.
And so it's kind of funny that Coen brothers, in the next movie they did right after Fargo, they casted him as a guy that's trying to get in on a conversation. He's trying to get a word in.
Yeah, they never give him any context and never ask for it either.
It hard cuts after, like, the situation happens and they try to call 911. Hard cuts them at the mortuary.
Yeah.
Even the guy that's, like, telling them how much of the vase is like a person. Where he's like, that's how much it's going to be for the receptacle. He keeps saying receptacle, which you know that's like a Joel and Ethan Coen. They're dying laughing while they're writing receptacle.
It's like, oh, it's going to sound funny. Just wait.
But they basically get a thing from Ralph's to put the ashes in. What was the receptacle called that they got?
I mean, it was just a can of coffee, right? Is that what you're
It
trying
was
to say?
like a Folgers coffee.
Yeah, I think it was just like an aluminum can of coffee.
And he says, like, Donnie's full name, which is the only time we hear Donnie's name.
Yeah.
Which is, and I'll just read it out here because it's like my favorite thing, Theodore Donald Karabatsos.
I know. And, like, I think what works so well about that speech, too, is it feels, like, actually sincere, too. It's like...
Walter's heartbroken.
That's the thing. It's like, you know, of course, Lebowski shits on him for, like, making it about Nom still. But, like, that's all he has, and that's what it means to him. Like, it's still sincere.
That's his life.
Exactly. So it's like, it's corny or whatever you want to call it, you know, but it still feels very authentic to him. He is genuinely sad about it.
But it is hilarious when he starts naming his people in Vietnam, and it cuts back to Jeff Bridges being like, this fucking guy again.
Yeah. Well, especially after everything they went through, where we didn't mention it yet, but, like, the fact that he just took a handicapped person and dropped him on the ground, like, the amount of shit they went through because
He's like, he's not a fucking cripple, get up.
Yeah, but the amount of stuff that Walter, like, ruined because of his uncontrolled, unchecked aggression and constant, what's the word, when you, like, impulsive violence.
Yeah.
Basically. And so, at this point, the dude was just sick of him, you know?
Yeah, like, the whole scene where, like, they find a kid's homework in Lebowski's car, in the dude's car, and they're like, okay, it's this fucking kid, maybe he has our money, and they go to the money, and, like, immediately Walter's acting like he's a fucking hotshot detective, and he's just like, is this your homework, Larry? Larry, is this your homework? And he's like, just ask him about the money.
Yeah, he's there behind him, literally saying, just ask about the money, man.
You have our money, and is this your homework, right?
And it's just, he never says a word the entire time.
Yeah, well, and it's also another proof of, like, what I was saying. The Coen brothers are really good at casting faces. Yeah. Just that kid immediately, you're like, shitty teenager.
Yeah, I know. And
this guy in an iron lung, and, like, Walter being like, I'm a huge fan of your work.
I know, like, why did they put so much work into that family? That's what, like you said, everyone has their own individual lives going on.
It's their own world. You're stepping into it. And obviously that line, you see what happens, Larry? This is what happens when you fuck a stranger in the ass, Larry.
And he keeps saying it again and again. When you fuck a stranger in the ass. And he's like smashing that car, and it turns out to just be a neighbor.
I love when the neighbor comes out, immediately Walter's on the defensive. He's like, whoa, hey.
Yeah. And then he gets the dude's car smashed.
He pours those ashes down. The wind blows those ashes into the dude's face. The dude is like, this fucking guy.
I know, he's just sitting there blank too. He's like, okay, yep, we're here now. That just happened.
And the dude's sad, and the dude's sad for Donnie leaving, obviously, but also is just like, kind of just done with Walter. Just come on, let it go, man.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, fuck it, let's go bowling.
Yep.
This is where Sam Elliott should have just gotten something. Like, he should have got, like, the Academy should have given him, like, an honorary award.
Lifetime Achievement Award for that.
Even though this movie came out in the 90s. Like, but this, like, you know, we see the stranger, like, one last time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the bartender, right before that, tells him, like, I'm sorry for your loss about Donnie. And he's like, Yeah, well, man, sometimes you eat the bar, sometimes the bar eats. Like, he doesn't get a chance to fully finish it until he sees a stranger.
And he's like, hey.
Yeah.
And I like what he asked him. He's like, how you doing, dude? And he's like, oh, ups and downs, strikes and gutters.
Yeah, I know.
Like, I want that as a tattoo.
Strikes and gutters.
Strikes and gutters, that's great. He's like, take it easy, dude. Oh, yeah, I know you will. The dude abides. Oh, God, it's beautiful.
It's a perfect way to wrap up that character, though.
The dude abides is like the quote, right?
Of course.
But then I'm just going to read this out really quickly. The dude abides. I don't know about you, but I take comfort in that. It's good knowing he's out there. The dude. Taking her easy for all us sinners. Like, I hope Coen brothers, like, pour themselves a glass of whiskey after writing that. Like, I hope they were just like, we fucking did it. Like, right here.
I know, it's such a weird way to end the movie, but it works so beautifully. I don't know how to explain it.
I laughed so fucking hard when Sam Elliott turns around and he's like, the dude abides. Acting like the dude is Jesus. Like,
yeah, I know.
Like, he looks at him with such admiration. And, people have already broken it down of just like the stranger is God and the dude is Jesus and Julianne Moore is Mary and like all this stuff, like the Virgin and all that stuff.
Okay.
And sure, you can look at it as that. Or the magic of this movie is like you could look at it as this guy at a bar that just admires the dude's way of living.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you don't care that he breaks the fourth wall and talks right to you and just wrapping up the movie.
Every movie should end like this. After Top Gun Maverick, it should cut to be like, well, that's Maverick for you. He flies away with his penny. Don't we all want to fly away with the girl of our dreams?
Yeah, exactly. What movie? What are some other movies you want to end that way?
Collateral. I don't know if Jamie Foxx will be okay.
or even No Country for Old Men. That's old Anton.
Who knows where Anton went after that ride? And who knows if Tommy Lee Jones...
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No,
There's a little Lebowski on the way. Which we haven't mentioned. We barely talked about Maude.
Okay.
But,
can we just touch on Maude very quickly?
Yeah, let's.
Julianne Moore like drops in halfway through this movie, just delivering heat. She is like so like you gotta watch May December, but like May December proves something to me, which is like she's one of the few actors that when they put on a voice, I'm never taken out of it.
Yeah, well, I think what's so cool about her character and her role in the movie overall is like every new mystery that the dude's being assigned to is like a drastic tonal shift. Your first introduction to her is her swinging over him, like with paint dripping on the floor. And then she's like laying on her back with her legs up because it increases the chances of contraception. And you learn that she just wants to have a kid with someone that like won't have any involvement in the process.
Like everyone is like admiring the dude.
Yeah.
Even the PI that's been hired by Bunny's parents that's been following him is like, I love your work, the way you've been double crossing both sides. And it's like, fuck off, stay away from my lady friend.
And it never ties up. That plot line never ties up. That's the best part. It's like he's like, I literally don't have room for you right now.
We haven't even discussed Jesus.
Oh my god!
Like, do you know what I mean? This movie has so much.
Yeah, so many moving parts.
We haven't discussed John Turturro licking a bowling ball.
And being a convicted pedophile.
He's like, fucking Quintana, that creep can roll.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, but he's a pervert, dude. Yeah. No, he's a pervert, dude, a sex offender.
Yeah, he's like, no, I'm being serious.
And I like that when it cuts back to like John Turturro, he's like, yeah, he had to go around the neighborhood and knock on every single door.
And it like cuts away to a whole different sequence.
But it does the flashing white to the flashback. It uses the transition where it flashes to white. And every time it cuts in the flashback, it uses like the noise of the bowling pins.
Yeah.
It's such a weird choice. But yeah, John Turturro, he's another one of those Coen brothers guys that is obviously like, he's a guy that can just... He's just the guy that you can call to be a scumbag.
Well, he always has like kind of high strung roles. I wouldn't even always call him a scumbag, but I think of like in Transformers how he's like just that stressed out government agent.
We're way off the tracks now.
The ending of Big Lebowski.
It does this like, he tips his hat forward. Mm-hmm. He does the whole, I'm rambling again.
Yeah.
And he kind of says like a similar type of monologue that he says in the beginning. kind of also highlighting how it's all about like a cycle. Things will just keep rolling around.
Yeah.
You know, a metaphor for bowling as well. He tips his hat, it goes to the lanes.
Yeah, doesn't it hard cut like right when the ball is about to strike?
Yes,
the pins?
that's it. It hard
Which
cuts.
is a cool way to cut it.
It doesn't fade out. It hard cuts.
It's just cool because it kind of tells a story for the movie where it's like, it could go one way or the other.
Yeah, man. It is kind of just nice to know that the dude's out there. I honestly mean that.
Yeah,
like
taking it easy for us sinners.
Like I believe that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When he says it, I believe it. I mean, this was just a great pod, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, in the best way possible, I'm like mentally exhausted. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, wow, we put so much into this movie.
We definitely need a Sam Elliott to wrap this podcast up for us.
Exactly. I know. I want someone mellow to come in and be like, well, that about wraps the pod up.
All right, well, that about wraps it all up. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate our patrons for supporting us again and again. Last but not least, Sice.
Wow.
Stay nice, dude.
Jesus.
Get out of here.